Live tonight. It is Monday Night Nerd. Welcome, everybody, to the show. For those who are new here, my name is Myers Corp Creation. Thank you for coming over. Sit down, grab a beverage, grab a snack. We got a good show ahead of you. We're going to be talking about video games as art. Are video games considered art? Are they not art? Are they in the middle? We're going to talk about that in a little while in the main event. But first, we're going to kick things off with some newsy news. This has been a light week when it comes to news, and every once in a while, it's not a bad thing. It's actually been a very relaxing week, which has been nice. I'm living up here in Ontario, Canada. We've had the day off today for May 2-4 weekend, so it has been a nice long weekend for me. I have not really been doing a ton of hard work, let's say. I've been nice, relaxing weekend. I've been working on some cosplay. One of the news items will be about why I've been working on my cosplay so much these past couple days. But it's been nice. It's been nice just relaxing, kicking back. Usually this time I would be watching movies. Almost every single show, it seems like I have a review about some kind of movie I've seen. Haven't really seen any movies this week. It's been kind of a light week when it comes to that. But what I have been doing is I have been gaming. I have been playing video games. And what I've been playing, I think I spoke about it last week. I have been deep diving into God of War. I am a big God of War fan. The first God of War game was the last time I've ever done an all-nighter playing a video game. A good buddy of mine, Caleb, had it. He told me it was an amazing game. I borrowed it off of him, and I played that probably from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. when I was in high school. I did not go to school the next day because it was just so good. I was so exhausted, but it was so worth it. So I've been a giant fan of the series. I have every single one of them. I actually bought the God of War Ascension, I think it was, came with the Pandora's box. I have the Pandora's box, and it has all of my copies of my games in it. But when this new PS4, not the Ragnarok one, the PS4 version, when that came out, if you're a fan of the series, you know that is a completely different game. The first 3, 4, 5, if you want to count the PSP games, were all about the Spartan mythos, the Greek god mythos, and now there is an Asgard version of the story that includes the same God of War character, Kratos. It plays different. It's got a very different control system. It's very much the original game was very just button mash, which was fun because you enjoyed the story. But now there's a lot of parrying and blocking. It takes a little bit of what I think the Dead Souls series. I've never played Dead Souls, but from what I know, it's very button precise and making sure you're paying attention. They've taken a bit of that and put it in the God of War series. And I'll admit, I bought it when it first came out, and I didn't like it. I played it for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and the story was interesting, but I just could not get into gameplay, and I put it away. And I played a few more minutes, probably 6, 8 months later. Couldn't get into it. Did it again and again and again and again. And then recently, I'd say about a month ago, I threw it in. I said, you know what? I got to give it a fair shot. And I started to play it, and I got into it. But I was already like 12, 13 hours into the game. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening. I don't know the story. I'm going to start from scratch. And I did. And now I'm hooked. And now I don't want to put the controller down. But I'm an adult, so I need to. And I need to go enjoy my life. And I have cosplays and stuff to build. So I have been doing that in all my spare time. If anybody knows me, I have my animals. I have my beautiful, lovely, adorable dog, Jazz, and our 2 cats. Well, Jazz is a foster from Louisiana, and she does not do well with fireworks. So because this is the May 2-4 weekend, it has been Fireworks City at night. So when she gets scared, She gets really anxious. She starts to shake and she tries to hide, and we try and comfort her. But what we try to do beforehand is we try and put something on the TV or on Alexa. Okay, I could say it in here and not set something off. We can set that. We can put on something that is going to distract her, something loud, something that has, bass to it to sort of drown out at least the far fireworks. The close ones you really can't do anything about. But playing God of War has helped because I've been able to put that on, and it's Kratos yelling and breaking things and screaming, and it helped a bit. Last night was a little nuts because we didn't get it on. We didn't had certain sections of the game that were a little slower, so it didn't really work. But it has helped to play that right now. So I'm playing that. I'm probably I can't tell how far I am in the game. I think I'm probably about 3/4 of the way through, but it has been an amazing game, and probably I hope to have it beat before this weekend, because this weekend coming up, I will be going to Anime North. I will be attending Anime North in Toronto, Mississauga, I believe it is. This weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My wife and her friends and myself, we volunteer at Anime North. It is all charity run or volunteer run. So the volunteers do an amazing job there, and we do the audio and visual for the main stage. And I will be a part of that this weekend. So I will be going to Anime North, and I will be cosplaying only on one day. I might be able, I'm in the process of getting a second cosplay. We'll see if I can get it done before Anime North. I hope so, because to be completely honest, I'm not a giant anime fan. My anime knowledge is Pokemon, Sailor Moon, and Street Fighter, if you want to consider that, even though it's a game. Never a Dragon Ball fan, never a One Note fan. All those, I'm never into it. It's never been my jam. I appreciate it, 100%. I appreciate it. It's just not my thing. So the cosplay I'll be doing is Ghost Rider, because that is the one that seems to be the most popular with people around me. So I'll be doing Ghost Rider on the Saturday. I'm again hoping I can get one more cosplay done. I'm going to get the big piece of it tomorrow. It's not going to be a build, it's going to be a purchase. Fingers crossed I can get it done before, because I think it would be a really fun cosplay to do. And it is not, again, anime. It will be a video game one, but really works in that area. So fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I will be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you run into me, please stop by. If I'm in Ghost Rider, stop by, say hi. It will be a photo that I don't think anybody will ever see again. It will be Ghost Rider, full flame on, but carrying a water bottle, because I'm going to be walking outside in that costume and I'm going to be sweating buckets probably. So if you see Ghost Rider walking with a bottle of water, please understand that I'm just dying of heat with that costume on. I'll have a big leather jacket on and sweating bullets. So it'll be a fun weekend. It always is a great blast there. Hoping to pick up some books. There is a section there. I can't remember what the booth is called, but they had an amazing book sale last year. It was like they had they had a bunch of mangas there, but then I'm a big fan of art books when it comes to video games. And last year, I'm looking at them right now, and I was so happy I picked these up. They had a Beyond the World Street Fighter, talking about the history of the Street Fighter franchise. They had a Mega Man history and a Art of Darksiders book there, and it was like buy one get two free. They were getting rid of them, and I was so happy to pick those up. I'm hoping I can find another deal like that, because that was really cool. And the other book, which I will give me 1 second, I will grab it because I love this book so much. And I know a few of my friends are jealous I picked this up. This is a show that I loved growing up. And you know what? I'm going to backtrack what I said earlier. I don't consider this anime manga, but I guess it is. The Samurai Pizza Cats fan book. This was a show when I was a kid that I loved, and I was so happy to find this book at Anime North last year that I messaged my buddy Tom, and I just gloated to him. I'm like, next time you come over, you are allowed to read this. But oh, it was so cool. But yeah, if I can find another deal like that, I will be a very, very happy puppy. And yeah, it will be a fun weekend. It always is. This will be my third time going, third or fourth. And yeah, it's always a blast. We always have a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully I'll get to see some of you. I know, I believe Edith in the chat. I believe she will be there with some friends and family. So again, if you run into me, come say hi. I'll be walking around the entire weekend. We're gonna jump into actually, you know what? We'll save that part for last. Seeing as we're talking about Anime North, let's talk about cosplay a bit. I am working on Dash Rendar right now, and it is coming along amazing. Um, Dash Rendar from the Star Wars franchise, not exactly a canon character. He's from the Shadows of the Empire series, which was a great game for the N64 and a lot of the books that came out in the 90s and 2000s. But since Disney purchased the IP, I believe they said that that whole storyline mythos is no longer canon. So not technically a Star Wars character, but a Star Wars character nonetheless. I'm working on him. It is an interesting build. This is going to involve me sewing for the first time. I did have a large sewing cosplay I wanted to do for Anime North this year, but it was just way above my pay grade. So that will hopefully be coming next year. But with Dash, he has blue pants. It's actually a onesie from top to bottom, but I'm doing just the blue pants. And he's got like a quilt pattern on the intergroin of his pants. And I've spent the past 2 days, and Kelsey's friend Christine has been trying to figure this out as well, of how we are to stitch this properly. And I don't know. This was hopefully to be done for AN, but it's not. It's not going to get done. But it'll be something I'm going to be working on for the next little while. It will hopefully, knock on wood, be debuting at Fan Expo this year in August, along with it'll probably be Ghost Rider as well, and maybe the other. Well, I also have a suit coming, so that other suit might be making a debut at Fan Expo as well. So I've got a whole bunch. This is weird because when I started going to Fan Expo, I joked. Well, I didn't joke. I tried to do a new cosplay every day of the convention every year. And I always worked my butt off. And it was always a struggle because you're always working on one and then you're halfway through and you start another one and start another one. If you're a cosplayer, you completely understand what I'm talking about. But now I'm to the point where I have so many cosplays, I need to start picking and choosing which ones I want to show off and which ones I want to debut, because I will have hopefully Dash done. Ghost Rider was a huge success, so I'll probably bring Ghost Rider back because he's so popular. I've got a suit coming, so that's going to be a third one. This other one I'm possibly planning for Anime North is going to be a fourth one. And then I've got all the ones that I've got before. I've got Lantern, I've got, you know, Red Arrow. I've got a whole bunch to work on, a whole bunch to do. So now I get to sit back and go, which ones do I want to wear? So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great Fan Expo. And for those who haven't read the news, Danny Trejo is announced to be at Fan Expo this year, which is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be packed there. And the big one is Hayden Christensen. Darth Vader will be there. And I think he's only there on the Saturday. So Saturday, as always, will be a nut house. This is why I don't volunteer at Expo, because all those guys, including Edith in the chat, it's going to be nuts for them. So I applaud them, my amazing friends who volunteer, and all their hard work, because that con could not run without them. But that is a barrel of monkeys that I don't want anything to do with. I'll be a fan that weekend. But yeah, it'll be a good weekend, and we'll have some more cosplay news in the next little while. Hopefully, like I said, if I get that cosplay done for AN, I will post it on social before the weekend comes. But we'll see. I've got 3 days, and it is possible to get it done in 3 days, but we're gonna see. I'm not gonna, make myself go crazy. Lastly, let me take a big drink of this before we get into this last story, because if you were on my social media today, we're going to talk about a post I did today that blew up a little more than I expected. If you've been on social media the past couple days, Fast and Furious, let's just say Fast and Furious star Michelle Rodriguez had an interesting comment where she's talking about the different movies that are coming out in theaters, and her quote that is making the rounds, and everybody sort of had the same stitch on social media, was her quote was, how many Marvel movies do you need? And a lot of people did a stitch at the end of that quote and put, you know, you're on Fast 10, so who are you talking about? Um, I went a different approach. My post that I did today was more talking about, you know, she's not in the Marvel world, so I completely understand her point of view, and she's also part of a franchise that's doing amazing. So, you know, people have opinions on things that I don't agree with, but whatever. But going to the main point, there's a reason why Marvel has so many IPs out, and so many movies, and so many TV shows, and so many of everything. They've got, not even just Marvel, Disney is not just putting out a movie to get a ticket. Marvel is putting out a movie for you to buy a ticket. And then they're also telling you you're probably going to buy another ticket. And then you're probably going to buy a toy from that movie. And then you're probably going to buy a Funko or a t shirt or a poster or a stuffy or something. You're then going to probably buy Disney Plus because you want to watch it again. And that's the only place to watch those movies, unless you want to buy it on DVD, which is kind of becoming outdated. And then you've got something that everybody's trying to grasp a hold of, and that is nostalgia. You've got a generation right now, and it will happen again, that just loves things they loved when they were kids. You have an entire organization like Disney who is currently, and has for the past 10, 15 years, taken movies that we all grew up with and is literally remaking the exact same movie, but in a different format. They're taking the animated movies and making live action versions of them. You've seen the movie. I always make the joke about Titanic. Anyone asks, did you go see Titanic in theaters? No. Why? Because I knew the ending. You know what's going to happen. But they know that you have a love for the property so much that you'll go see it again. And then you're going to have kids, and you're going to have grandkids, and you're going to have that memory of seeing that movie in theaters and how much it meant to you, and you're going to show it to them. And maybe, just maybe, they fall in love with it too. And then that cycle repeats. And it repeats, and it repeats. Is there diminishing return? Of course there is. But even off one movie, if they make their money back in box office alone, you're not even thinking about merch and future tickets. Like, they're doing the long game. So why does Marvel pump out properties every 5 minutes? Because they have that much ready to go. They've got decades of stories that came out weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, that they can pull from and readapt it to a movie or a show or a series and pump it out to a new generation who may not have read the comics, who may not be who may not even know the character. I never read Moon Knight. It was a good series. I never read Miss Marvel. I kind of didn't mind the series. It wasn't my favorite, but I watched it, and now I'm interested more in what Kamala Khan's going to do. That's Disney's MO, and it's always been that. So to see them do that with Marvel and Star Wars, why do you think we have a new Indiana Jones coming out next month? Because you think that they're looking to hook an entire generation right now to go see a new Indiana Jones? No. They want the audience who grew up watching that first, second, third, or in fourth even. That's what they're looking for. And that's why Marvel does it. So saying how many you need all of them. If you're Disney, you want all of them. You want to keep making those movies to make everybody happy. Because that's just going to print money for you. It's going to print money for you. It's going to print money for that mouse. So good on Disney, because they got it and they just keep doing it. Because like I said at the end of that post, if you ever go to Galaxy's Edge at Disney World or Disneyland, you realize that when you make one of those lightsabers, you make one of those droids, it ain't kids around you. There's a couple. It's mostly adults because they can afford that stuff. Why do you think Lego's so expensive? You think many kids are buying Lego these days? Yeah, it's adults. They got us as a generation, and they're just trying to print money, and they're doing a great job at it. So I cannot slam them for that. And, as even mentioned it to my wife today, I read a stat, I think it was 8 months ago. The current toy market, it's not to kids. Most toys, I think it was like 60% of toys being purchased now are adults. They're not kids. And you also have a generation like me who are now buying 2 of everything. They're not buying 1. They're buying 2 copies. They're buying 2 figures because one of them they want to keep in packaging to resell later, and they want one to open up and enjoy. So this whole thing about selling to adults and selling to nostalgia, that's the smartest thing that company could do. So I can't shame Disney for doing it. They've been doing it for the past 20 years, and they're going to keep doing it because it just makes money. So I don't agree with Michelle Rodriguez. I know they're going to do 2 more of those Fast movies, and and I think Vin Diesel said they're going to be, spin-offs. So I'll go see them. I got nothing wrong with Fast movies. I've seen almost all of them. I think the 9 and 10 are the only 2 I haven't seen. So I don't see anything wrong with it. The part that made me laugh more than anything is that I wanted Michelle says something like that, and I surprised Vin Diesel doesn't walk up behind and be like, "Hey, by the way, not to pun intended, but I am Groot. Like, let's not talk about Marvel. Like, it kind of made a entire franchise and probably probably bought him a house from one line of dialogue. So, I mean, jeez, shut up, Michelle." So, but that is all for the news today. That video tickled me when she said that. But yeah, let's jump to the sponsors. Let's jump into the main event. Sponsors, as always, unless you are a small business or a large business who would like to sponsor this show, I will gladly accept your money, and I will promote anything you want. I will wear your t-shirts. I will put a poster up in the background. I will talk about how great your product is. Please send me money. I have no problem with that. I am a corporate shill if I have to be. But the sponsors right now, because that has not happened, my lovely, amazing, adorable wife, I love you. Thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for always supporting me and pushing me to do crazy things like this crazy podcast. And I really couldn't be the person I am without you. So thank you, hon. I love you. Thank you for always having my back. Let's jump into this main event. I'm going to get a little more comfortable because this is going to be kind of one of those, I don't know, it's going to be an interesting topic. I have been a video game fan since, birth, let's say. Let's say it's close to there. I was born in 1988. Yes, I am 35 years old a couple weeks ago. Video games have come a long way. It is my first experience back in the day was not Pong for all the younger people who are watching this video. I grew up with an NES. I grew up with Mario and Mario 3 and all those fun NES games. Do I think video games are art. Well, let's define art. The definition of art, and let me make sure I get this right because it is important. The definition of art is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as a painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. To me, that could be the definition of a video game. Now, when it comes to art, it is definitely a subjective subjective idea when it comes to the individual person looking at the art. Now, personally, I'm going to talk about a little story. When I was growing up, I was the drawing kid. I've this is just sitting weird. Um, I was a drawing kid. I drew all the time. That was sort of my thing. Um, so much so that my mom's boyfriend at the time would pay, and I would go to the local art school. When I wasn't in school, I went to the art school. And I took a bunch of classes there, and they were great. The first one I did was a claymation class, which I have a VHS from that, which I will talk more about this in the future, but I will give you a quick synopsis. The whole point of it was we were to create claymation characters, and we did stop animation. And I was probably 7, 6 when we did this, but it was a blast. We got into groups and we did a couple different feature films, let's say. And by feature films, I mean the total runtime of all of them was like 5 minutes. But we would create the characters and we would do little stop motion animated things, and we would do an audio over top of it. It was a blast. But we also did drawing, cartooning, and all these other courses. I think I did probably about 4 or 5 of them while I was a child. Um, but outside of this art school was a sculpture. And I never knew it was a sculpture. It was 3 orange girders that you'd build like a building or a bridge out of. And they were kind of going from into a point, and then there was one that was sort of sticking out of it. And this was on their front lawn. And as a kid, we drove by it every single time, and I never understood what it was. I thought it was like some weird construction thing they were trying to build, and they just never finished it. It just didn't make sense. And it wasn't until many years later that I drove by it and I went, "Oh my, that's art. That's what that is. It's an art piece." And I kind of had to sit there for a minute and go, "Is that art? Like, is that art? Like gluing or bolting or stapling 3 things together, is that art?" To me, it's a bit of a stretch because anybody can do it. But to argue that point, to be the devil's advocate of that, there are painters out there who will just grab handfuls of paint and throw it at a canvas, and that's impressionistic art. If one can be art, why can't the other one? So it is definitely up to the viewer on whether they consider it art. But our question is, to the masses, is it considered art? Well, I think the biggest thing is where does that viewer come from? Is that person coming from a biased point of view? Are they coming from a neutral point of view? Because if you were back in the 90s, let's say the mid to late 90s, and you were talking about this question, it would probably garner an answer that is very negative. Because back in the 90s, we had something, and we still do have something called the ESRB. And the ESRB is the Electronic Services Rating Board or something like that. And basically, it's that little MTE that you see in the corner of video games and other forms of media that tell parents and guardians that this is acceptable for children or teens or mature adults or whatever. Well, when that first came out, The reason it came out was from a very famous franchise. Oh, we didn't even talk about that. I'm going to pause after this statement. We're going to talk about an extra piece of news that I totally forgot about. Um, that was because of a franchise called Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat, with the digitized graphics that made the characters look extremely real in a digitized version, and they were ripping limbs and heads, and blood was flying everywhere. And people realized, oh, maybe this isn't the game that we should be giving to kids. Problem was, it was a huge quarter grab at arcades. So it's kind of hard to not make that the biggest game franchise in the world. Quick pause. Forgot that Mortal Kombat had a new trailer this weekend for their new game, Mortal Kombat 1. I'm a giant Mortal Kombat fan, and I cannot believe I forgot to talk about this. Great trailer. Um, Mortal Kombat 11, I still have a bad taste in my mouth. I bought that opening day, first day special edition pack, and I ran through that story in like a day and a half. And the online at the time was broken as hell. And it took them a long time to get that to work. The crypt feature I wasn't a big fan of because it just took forever to do anything. Um, so I won't be buying 12 or Mortal Kombat 1 on opening day. I will definitely wait for an ultimate version to come out where I can get everything. But yeah, great trailer. I'm interested to see how this new world is going to be. If you're a fan of the franchise, they sort of had a reset at the end of 11, so this is a new beginning to everything. So I'm interested to see where it's going to go. Anyways, back into the main event. You had a world that was very scared of video games. That was very much the it was very much the scapegoat. In the 80s, you had metal music and rock music that was sort of this is killing our children. And in the 90s, it was video games because of games like Mortal Kombat. And you didn't really have it was still the Wild West when it came to video games. I mean, now you have basically four options to publish a game. You've got Nintendo, you've got Microsoft, you've got Sony, and you've got Steam. That's kind of it. Back in the 90s, you had a little more freedom because the companies weren't as rigid when it came to the development and the publishing of the software. So you could go online and find games like Postal, which you didn't, if you didn't know what it was and you realize that this is a guy in the game who's just gone crazy and is going around a workplace shooting people just before something like a Columbine happens, that's not a good look for video games. But that's it kind of goes back to the squeaky wheel gets the oil. That was the thing making the most noise. But you also had games like a Final Fantasy, not even something like a Final Fantasy 7 that was on a PlayStation, but you had the earlier Final Fantasies. You had A Secret of Mana. You had even things like Super Mario World that was very bright and colorful and a fun experience. And the idea of having something like a Mario or a Secret of Mana or a Final Fantasy, there's always a goal involved. There's always a step 1, step 2, step 3 goal in every game you play. There are exceptions, Sims, etc., but even that has a goal. Art doesn't. And that's what a lot of the arguments are for that it's not art, is that when you go to an art gallery, or if you want to say a symphony or something, there's never a goal. You just can sit back, take in the art, let your mind interpret it the way it wants, and come to a conclusion. Video games, however, have an end goal involved. You could spend your time not doing anything, you could sit on a level for hours like a Skyrim or a Horizon and just watch the scenery. But you know that in the end, the whole point of it is to get to a next stage. So, does that mean that it's not art? I don't think so. Because, well, as we said in the definition, the whole point of art is primarily for their beauty and to bring out an emotional response in somebody. And you can't tell me that a game like Journey or The Walking Dead from Telltale or something like that does not elicit an emotion. Even The Last of Us, like if The Last of Us did not have the emotion that it did, there wouldn't be a show about it. It would just be another zombie game. And if anything, it would be people saying, well, it's a ripoff of The Walking Dead. But because it was written so well and there was such emotional decisions it made in that game, it really makes it more of an art form because it brings out the emotion. And to sort of sidetrack, going back to my original point of the girders in front of the art gallery, different people enjoy different types of art. I know my wife and I have visited the art gallery of Toronto, and we love going, but it's usually because of a certain exhibit is going to be there. Generally, we've enjoyed the art gallery, not specifically the exhibit, but the gallery in general. But there are certain pieces in certain areas that hit me differently than they would my wife, and some that hit her different than they hit me. And video games are very much the same because there are different types of games. If you're not a gamer, you see something like a Fortnite or something like a Minecraft, and you say, okay, that's a video game. And they're all like that. And it's like, no, if you're a gamer, you know that it's different. You know that you could go from something highly, highly detailed like a Skyrim or a Witcher or a Horizon, where it's something so almost photographically quality detail, to something extremely basic and simplistic like a Flower for the PS3 or Journey, like I said earlier, or Minecraft, even, where it's so pixelated that the main character has a square head, when other games are almost, you could probably make a character that looks almost identical to me at this point. The graphics are so good. You could even go, when it comes to time period, there are people who love modern art and hate the historic art. When I grew up, we had part of our art class, because I took art all through high school. There was a part of it that I loved the modern art. I like, the splash art and the bright colors of the modern era. The historical art, boring to me. I know I'm not the only one that thinks that way, but I also know I'm not. There's other people that feel completely different, that hate the modern art because they enjoy the classics. It's the same when it comes to video games. Somebody that loves something old school when it comes to the 8-bit era and the 16-bit era, that's why Shovel Knight and stuff like that does so well. And I feel I enjoy a good balance of them. I can enjoy something that's super simple and super easy when it comes graphically, but then I can also enjoy something like a Horizon, where I'm looking at a field and I'm like, it looks like a field not far from my house. So it's that part of it is very, very, very much a variety. And even when it comes to, another version of that historically, you could go something that, people love, World War II art or pre-war art. And then people like something more futuristic, like a Geiger type art who did the xenomorphs and etc. for Aliens. There are games like that. You've got something like a Red Dead Redemption, who is very much based in the Wild West. And, you get very specific on the clothing and the way people speak And the art, the coloring, the color palette of the scene alone is very specific to that time period. Even something like a God of War, which is even more historical when it comes to the ideas of Greek and Roman and Midgard and all them type gods. Sorry, I blanked on that one. But then you've got something more futuristic like a Mass Effect that is extremely futuristic. That's another version of art that the video game space mirrors the art world so much that it's very hard to say that it can't be it has to be a comparable. But the one thing that video games does that art will never do is that some video games make you the artist. And I don't mean that exactly. I mean the idea of it. Art is always done when you see it. The artist has finished whatever they are doing and they have put it out to display to get your opinion, feelings, emotions, etc. Video games allow you to make that choice and to become the artist because there are games out there that are not linear. There are games that are, a Mario where it's follow the road, boom, flagpole, you're done. But then you have games like a Grand Theft Auto or a Minecraft or a Telltale Walking Dead game or any of the Telltale series where the player will play the game completely different than any other player. If you put 1,000 chimpanzees together and you put Grand Theft Auto 3 in, or you put Minecraft or anything else, and you let them play for 3 days, none of them will have played the exact same way. That allows the person playing to become the artist. That lets them play and produce whatever art they want. You want to go run through the missions and finish the game in 3 hours, you can do that. If you want to go do side quests all day and take forever and make the game, a 50-hour experience, you can do that. That is the one thing that video games will always have above art, or the traditional word of art. And I feel that is one of the best selling points. And I think that some people may see that as a negative. I see that as a great positive. The idea that you can give someone, that you yourself as the video game designer, creator, can create that art for yourself and almost give it to a consumer in almost a half to 3/4 finished version and say, now you complete the storyline. You complete what you think these pieces should do. And I think that's such a great thing. And I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot because we're so into the visual of, is this game visually good? Am I being a good guy? Am I being a bad guy? Like an Infamous. That is an interesting form that I don't think a lot of people understand. The, it's very interesting, the idea of, I've thought about this before when it comes to specific artists and the technology that's changed over the years, because even in the video game form, we've got somebody like a Shigeru Miyamoto who started on, let's say the Mario franchise in Mario 1, and that was such a basic understanding of a game. What's the storyline, the complete storyline in Mario 1? An Italian plumber named Mario has got to go from point A to point B 3 times, facing obstacles and facing Koopas, different villains. And after the 3rd time, he's going to go to a castle. He's going to beat a big lizard. And then a mushroom is going to tell him the thing he wanted, the princess, is not there. It's in another castle. And that's going to happen 5 times. And that's it. We're not going to say anything about anybody. We're not going to give you a backstory of Mario. We're not going to give you a backstory of Bowser. We're not going to give you a backstory of Princess. None of that. Simple, easy. Now, Mario is a backstory. Mario has a brother. Mario has parents after the last movie. Bowser has, his army. He's got a kid in some movies. He's got a love interest in Peach. It's not just he kidnapped her because he's a big bad villain. It's a different technology that is evolved and allowed people to give more understanding to the art. Would artists from back in the day, a Da Vinci or even let's go with the Da Vinci because that's the most known. Would a Da Vinci take a Mona Lisa in today's world and give her a backstory? Would he make it not a painting? Would he make it a video? Would he make it a GIF and explain more about that piece of art? Like give her, why is she looking the way she is? Why do people look at it and see, is she smiling? Is she not smiling? That is something that I think is very interesting, because would that piece of art be different if they gave it, to some people might say, too much backstory? It's a possibility that it loses that luster because you know too much. You've got a symphony out there. You've got symphonies all over the world who, again, I'm not a big symphony person, so don't assault me if I'm incorrect about this, but there aren't many big symphonies creating their own music. They're playing a lot of the old music. But the ones that are probably making the most money and making the most exposure by putting their music into games like a Zelda or a Final Fantasy or a Skyrim. So, somebody who is perfectly fine with a symphonic piece from, uh, many, many moons ago, well, why is that music okay in that form, but not okay, or you don't see the appeal of it in a new form or a new medium? It's very interesting to think about how, like I said earlier, some people come in with that bias of they like their art the way it is and they don't want to have it in any different, again, medium or the way they see the world. But I definitely do consider art and video games being one and the same, even when it comes to something as basic as evolution. I mean, it's hard to not see the comparison where if you look at a piece of art starting many, many moons ago, you had charcoal art, and that's all you had as a medium was charcoal. And then you moved forward into watercolor, and you started to see a little bit of depth on a painting and a little bit of depth in, symphonies, even where a one instrument turned into a giant symphony. And now we have something not too long ago in world history, the photograph, where you could get something as picture perfect as if you were viewing it right there in person. How can you not compare that transition to Pong, to Super Mario 64, to the new Gran Turismo that's coming out next year, where it's almost picture perfect cars? I see the comparison. And I always will consider video games art, and I will always, I always feel like it's definitely, I think with the modern technology and the way we're able to evolve the video game world, I think now it's becoming a little more accepted. I still think there are people in the outlying periphery that still kind of shrug their shoulders at it and lift their nose to it, that it's video games. Like, I actually, it's funny, a coworker actually jokingly said it to me, like, you kids in your video games, like, when are you going to grow up? And I said, I don't want to, because I enjoy going on those adventures and, seeing a world that I'll never visit, but it's a nice thing to get away from. And it's a nice world that I like to enjoy, just as, again, some people like going to an art gallery and staring at a painting for hours. I just want to build my own adventure, and I get to do that in many different worlds, and I like it. That felt like a TED Talk. That really felt like a TED Talk, but it's true. I do believe that video games are art, and I do feel like the world is becoming a little more accepting of it because the generation who didn't have video games is getting old enough that their voice isn't being heard as much. And my generation and younger and older, we're kind of understanding and seeing the evolution of it and realizing that it's, just like music, back in the day, Elvis started swinging that pelvis and everybody went nuts. And now we're looking at that going, well, we just had WAP a couple years ago. Like we we ain't Kansas anymore if you compare those two. So I definitely consider video games a form of art, and I can't wait to see what the art form does in the future. I'll always be a gamer. I may not be playing the games I used to the degree I used to, because I've become an adult. I hate that word, but I have become an adult, and I've got adult responsibilities. But I'll always be a gamer, and my wife will always be a gamer, and I think that's great. I think that's great. It is 7:51 in the PM. Um, I did say last week this is usually the part of the show where we do the top or the 3 questions. But we're going to change it up this week because we are talking about video games, and we're talking about a lot of, emotions and how video games and art are built to sometimes bring out the emotions. So I thought tonight I would do a top 5. I don't do top 5s that often. I don't think I've done a top at all on in these videos, but we're going to do a top 5 tonight instead of the 3 questions. We're going to do the top 5 saddest video game moments. Now, we all understand what the saddest moments are. We all probably have our own list. I have not played every game imaginable. There are obvious ones here that I know that I will not mention because I have not played them. I have not played Final Fantasy VII. I've played bits of it. I've never played the whole game. I know the sad moment that happens. It's not on this list. I apologize. I understand how important that moment is. It ain't on this list, though. These are all moments where I have been playing and I have become emotional because it was such an impactful moment. These are in no particular order. These are just some of the ones that came to mind. I think we can all agree, if you've played the game, the first 15 minutes of The Last of Us with Joel and his daughter is emotional. Whether you have kids or you don't, those first few minutes set the tone for the game and are an emotional gut punch. It's one of the few times where you meet the character and you don't have any backstory, don't have any emotional connection, but boy, do you feel that emotion when it first happens. And when that moment happens, it hits like a fist. And yeah, that definitely caught me off guard. And it was that was a tough one. I should go back and play that again. I still have 2 to play. I know it's one of those ones that I just need to get to, and I will get to it soon. But yeah, that first couple minutes was a tough one. Borderlands 2, one of my favorite games. The Borderlands series is amazing. I still love this series. Even Tiny Tina's Wonderlands and Borderlands 3, which I know did not get the critical reception everybody wanted. Borderlands 2 introduced us to a character called Tiny Tina. And Tiny Tina got her own DLC, which is her basically playing her version of Dungeons and Dragons, which then became the spinoff of Wonderlands that came out a couple years ago. I don't want to spoil it. I know it's been a few years, but I still don't want to spoil it in case anybody hasn't played it. One of the characters we meet in the first Borderlands game becomes a side character in the second game, and unfortunately he dies. He gets killed by the villain. And Tiny Tina does not take it well. And throughout her playing Bunkers and Badasses in the DLC, which is what you're basically the character in the game, she keeps referencing this character. And you can tell the people around her are trying to communicate, like, we all are feeling a lot, like, stop bringing him up. He's not with us anymore. And finally, at the end of the game, she cracks and she admits that she knows he's gone, but keeping him in this world, in this game that she's playing, is her way of paying tribute to him. And when she says that, wow, did that hit? Because you just felt her heart break when it happened, because it's her way of grieving with the situation. And boy, did that punch me hard. Like, she had her way of dealing with the tragedy, and she just needed everybody to understand that this is her way of doing it. And it wasn't something that I expected. It was such a fun game, and that emotional punch came out of nowhere. So that is definitely one that will always be on my list. Um, Kind of similar to Last of Us, Telltale Walking Dead. Lee and Clementine, the ending of season 2, I believe, is where we meet, where everything kind of ends for that pairing. Um, yeah, no, it was one, I think. Anyways, we all know that ending was tough because different to Last of Us, or different, yeah, different to The Last of Us. Lee and Clementine, we really see them bond, and you see them become a family. And that ripped my heartstrings. Again, I'm not going to spoil it because I know it's many, many years old, but I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. But that ending was one of the few times where I was like bawling my eyes out at the end, because that was just a wrenching moment. And it really made me, I was a fan of the Telltale series beforehand, but that really made me go, okay, I want to keep going forward with this. Number 4, this is an odd one. This is an odd one, and I don't think it gets the credit it deserves. If you played it, you know it. If you've not played it, you have probably no idea what it is. Spec Ops: The Line. Spec Ops: The Line was a PS3 game that was a third-person shooter. It was based around a military group going into, I believe it was Dubai. Dubai was taken over by some military faction, and you're going in there as the brave. I don't know if they're officially American, but brave soldiers going in to free everybody. Very much a stereotype what Call of Duty or something like that would be. It takes a left turn and it changes your thought process when it comes to the entire game and other games in general. There is a moment that I will just call the white phosphorus moment, that it happens and you almost drop your controller because it, oh, I don't want to spoil it. It's it makes you pause and realize what has happened throughout the game, and also makes you reflect on other games you've played. And that's a tough thing to do. It's one thing to make you stop and say, what did I just do? It's another thing to go, what have I done before? And what do I do on every other game? It's a lot of, I'll say this, it is a lot to do with blindly doing something without really taking stock of what you're doing. It's similar. It's a similar mindset to if you played BioShock, where the ending of that, the certain term has been mentioned throughout the game, and you realize it is a call sign to make you do something. Very similar, but really dark and really tough to kind of get your head like, whoa, what did we just do? So Spec Ops: The Line was a very good one, and that white phosphorus moment makes you kind of hits you. And lastly, it's not a sad one. The last one is probably one of the best indie games I played in a long time, and it's one of my wife and I's favorite games, and that is Journey. If you've never played Journey, that is a game that is never going to get the critically acclaimed praise that it deserves. Journey is a game where it's very much a basic understanding of getting literally to the top of a mountain to reach a goal. We don't know why. You just got to get from the bottom to the top. And your character is a very generic, cloaked figure. Don't know sex, race, religion, anything. Could be anybody. And you play the game solo. However, throughout the game, you possibly can run into other people playing the game who look identical to you. You don't know anything about them. You don't get a username. You don't get any idea of who that person is. And the only way you can communicate is when you press one of the buttons, it sends out a ping, like a ping. And you could do short pings, ping, 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 or you could do long pings, ping. And that's the only way you can communicate with each other. You can't do any directions, hand movements, or anything. That's all you do. And you have to complete certain puzzles. And if you meet this person early enough in the game, you can go all the way to the top of the mountain with this person. And it's incredible the amount of happiness you feel when you get to the top with someone you don't know and how you've had no interaction with besides just a simple ping. It's one of the most genius games that worked flawlessly. And at the end of the game, after you've beaten it, you realize that because everybody looks the same, the person that you thought may have followed you from the beginning to the end may not have, and you may have actually interacted with different people on the way to the end, because at the end you get a list of the people you have worked with. And there is a trophy in the game, or an achievement, if you start from the beginning and work with the same person to the end. And that's just luck if that person keeps going with you the whole way without stopping. Because as soon as you stop the game, that person will leave. You don't like, it's not even this person is left. It's just they're gone. You turn around and they're no longer there. And it's an amazing game. I love Journey. I think at the end of that, having that emotional connection with somebody who you don't know. I actually added somebody on the PSN because we finished the game together, and we actually started from the beginning and worked our way to the end. And that was pretty cool to message him and be like, dude, we went through that journey together, and we don't communicate anymore, but it was kind of cool to have that moment of like, hey, we did something together. What's your name? Who, where are you from? And it builds that relationship, and it's an amazing game. And even the visuals, like if you type in Journey PS3 on Google after the show, it's an amazing game and one of my favorites. So, that is a happy sad. This is the sad moment in this is it's very much a happy sad because you had a great adventure with somebody, and it's sad that it's over, but it's also you're glad you did it. So that is the end of the show. We have gone over an hour. This is one of the few shows we've gone over a full hour here. And thank you all for joining, and thank you for sticking around. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, give me a like, please. I greatly appreciate it. Give me a share, give me a follow, give me a, whatever you want. Give me a middle finger. I don't care. Next Monday, we are definitely going to be talking mostly about my time in Anime North. That is definitely going to be the topic of discussion. It's going to be a great weekend. Again, I hope I see you all there. And if I don't, you'll hear all about it on Monday. And I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys get to enjoy this week. It looks like it's going to be beautiful if you're in my area of the woods. But that is it for tonight. Have yourselves a good evening, and I will see you all next week here on Monday Night Nerd. See you guys later.